What's up, guys? Going to keep today's intro nice and short, and I don't know how sweet it'll be. But I guess it's going to be sweet for some. We're not going to talk about quarterbacks today. I feel like quarterbacks are taking us apart. Okay, we have people that are starting to line up over here and people that are starting to line up over there, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Everybody's here to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody's here to talk about, whatever is coming up. This off season, the draft is in now 20 days. Before long, you're going to be into OTAs and mini camp and rookie camp and training camp and preseason and everything else. And it's going to be just, like Steelers Love here says, I'm of the belief that I have no control over who they bring in, so I just go with the flow. Well, there's kind of that too. Like I can sit here and bellow all day about who I think should or should not be the quarterback, but it's not like they're tuning in going, man, I really hope DK's on our side. Like they couldn't care less, nor should they. They run the football team. I just talk about it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to chill here a little bit. We're going to talk about other stuff. That means you too. I almost never say like what you can and can't talk about. I actually am going to ask that you just bring up stuff that has nothing, zero, not even peripherally. Don't try to sneak it in to do with quarterbacks. And when we do that, we're going to do it with Chris Halleck when we come back right after this.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
The funny thing is, Chris Halleck, we just killed the viewership on this show. it just went like this. Yeah, it's like they went, no, quarterbacks, we're out of here. Except for Brian Brown, who's got a great sense of humor and comes in and says, this is one of those quarterback shows. Yeah, that's it, pal. Let's start with Steel Scorpio, Chris. What's the best Permane sandwich?
I got to go with probably the most common one, which is capicola and egg.
I hear capicola and egg most commonly, and yet I don't remember for all the times I'm in there, and it's a lot. I never remember somebody around me ordering it. Like everybody says it, but I never actually see it in motion.
Well, if you ever eat Permanis with me, you'll see it in motion because I get it probably 8 out of 10 times. Every now and then I try to branch out and get something else, but the capicola and egg is where it's at.
I'm all roast beef, and I'm one of those who, when you walk into Permanis, don't look at the menu. Don't do that. It's actually, it reminds me of the Mike Tomlin line about the was it the number 3? Is that the one he uses for the McDonald's? He says, everywhere you go in the world, this is Tomlin now, everywhere you go in the world and you order a number 3 at McDonald's, it's the same thing. No matter where in the world you get it. Always kind of like that here. Lyle Croft Zarkin Food, first off, is a roast beef over all other deli meats. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a Permane sandwich. That means something else.
Yeah.
Lyle Croft is a pastrami guy. I hear pastrami more often than I hear capicola. Daniel Pike wants to know what are my thoughts on the Market Square revitalization project, since we're talking about Permanis, and it's right over here. It's half a block away from where we are downtown. My own thought, I very, very, very rarely criticize anything that the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership does, but we're taking a whole year to fix that thing up for the NFL draft. There wasn't anything wrong with it. Do you know what I'm saying, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, you obviously know way better than I do, but I also maybe understand a little bit just from maybe an outsider's perspective, the overly planning for such a gigantic event.
Yeah,
because it's going to be huge.
it is. And at the same time, of all the things that I thought that we needed, whether it's downtown, North Shore, or whatever else, I would have put Market Square close to last on my list. There was nothing wrong with it. Now, what's the final product is nice and all, but the draft is going to be an extraordinarily big deal for our city. We can handle it because we can handle Taylor Swift on back-to-back days. We can do anything. But it's still going to be something here. Michael Barnett says, being positive today that the Steelers are not the Pirates. Of course, it is opening day here in Pittsburgh. Such as it is, that's generally been over the first 143 years anyway, a festive occasion. I don't know that it is today, Chris. How are you feeling?
I mean, they're playing the Yankees, and the Yankees just got done hitting 9 home runs like last weekend in one game. So
they have 22 in their first 6, which is a major league record, and they've done so using these Doofenshmirtz bats. If you guys don't know what that reference is, it's just sorry, I'm not about to explain. But these weaponized bats that have all of the concentration in the barrel. It's a little bit thicker. It actually looks a little obnoxious. The bat does, but
it does.
They claim, of course, that it's got nothing to do with it. But then I don't see them putting them back on the rack.
No.
Do you? Okay.
No, it is interesting how baseball produces these different features to bats because there's only so much you can do with it because it's a wood bat. But remember for a while the axe handle bats that were starting to get really big. Yeah. Like certain players that I know were using them are not using them anymore. And so I'm just curious to see if this is just going to be another fad or if this is actually going to turn into something.
Yeah, and it's not like, when Aaron Judge has 5 of your 22 home runs, you're not wondering, gee whiz, did Judge need help? No. And it also helps the Yankees that they play in Yankee Stadium, which is a bandbox. Judge's home run last night against the Diamondbacks wouldn't have been a single in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So that doesn't hurt either. Brent asks a question about your Friday Insider feature today on DK Pittsburgh Sports that Chris handled this week, in which Chris reported that the hang-up with the Ireland game announcement, the date announcement, is due to the unknown opponent. He says, I thought it was Green Bay. I don't know who the opponent is.
That's been reported, but more as speculation, not as anything official.
Yeah.
Nothing is official. I talked with multiple. I mean, when I say multiple, I mean, I need at least 2 hands to count how many people I spoke with, both between the Steelers organization and the league while I was at the annual meeting. There is nothing in stone when it comes to the opponent or the date. Trust me, I tried. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, it's supposed to be in the final week of September.
Yeah.
And actually, that's really not one of those things that can move around much.
No,
because you can't have short weeks following an international game. You can't have a weird week leading into an international game. And because they are what they are, they have to be on a Sunday. So, because the NFL wants them to be able to air them at 10 a.m. on Sundays as a lead-in so that they get another game that's in an original time slot here. Denny says that his depression today has been postponed until 4:12 p.m. One of the neat things the Pirates have done of late, by the way, is that cool. 4:12 thing. I heard Greg Brown joking the other day that they should have night games at 7:24 for the other area code.
That's actually pretty clever. That is cool.
Yeah. Slim says, hey, DK, what do you think about George Pickens' future with the Steelers? If they keep him, do you think he'll hold out? We haven't heard, unless I've missed something, Chris, anything from George.
No, not from George, but from people that I spoke with in the organization. They are expecting, I wouldn't say, the general feeling is that he will hold in for a contract extension.
Hold in. So that's like when you show up to training camp, but you don't do any team activities. Like you'll do the individual, like Deontay did a couple of years ago whenever he was trying to get his contract and eventually got it. And that was actually kind of early in camp when that got done. Based off of the conversations I've had, I at this moment in time expect him to be a hold in training camp. Lyle says that area needs parking that is not leased. No, it doesn't. It's Market Square, man. It's historic. You parking. Get the hell out of here. You want to go to Ross Park Mall and be lame? Go nuts. There's a brand new garage, a brand new state-of-the-art garage adjacent to Market Square.
Yeah.
Rick Petrangelo comes in with a $5 contribution and says, hey, DK and Chris, being that the draft will be in Pittsburgh next year, wait a second. Is he doing a backdoor on us here? He says, which quarterback do you think will be the one that's of interest in the draft? I like Drew Aller. Is that a quarterback? He's doing an end around on us here.
Yeah, because it's not this year's quarterback.
All right. You know what? We're going to let this slide because of the contribution. But yeah, what do you think of Drew Aller? All I ever hear is Penn State people complaining about him.
I think, now granted, there's a whole college season to go before he's going to be in the draft. So anything that's said now is subject to change. But I personally liked the growth that I saw last year. The tools are off the charts. The arm is great. The arm is legitimate NFL arm. He processes things really well. That's something you really like to see for a college quarterback. The main thing, and it's funny, I just got done watching film on him yesterday, which is just one of the random things that I do because I'm weird.
Chris is waiting for an argument from over here. He's not
getting
one.
No. He will too often just have his upper body and lower body be completely disconnected. He will be off of his back foot and just decide to throw when he doesn't have to. When he's not under pressure or anything like that, he'll just be completely off balance when he makes a throw, and it's one of the reasons why he misses so often. If he can fix that stuff mixed with all the other stuff he has, he can absolutely be a legitimate franchise quarterback because the tools are there. The processing is there. He's just got to he's got to stop doing this. I'm Aaron Rodgers whenever I can flick it. You need to have a good base.
Tyrone Wilson says, I hope the Steelers can get their run-stop game together this year. I love how we started the season, disappointed how the last 5 games went. Can I just throw out a thought about run defense as it relates to this team, Chris?
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that the final game, the playoff game in Baltimore, as painful as that was for the Steelers, as painful as that was for their fan base, gets blown way out of proportion as related to the remainder of the season? Like, you would think that's the only game they played. You would think that all the rest looked like that one in Minneapolis a couple of years ago that had Joe Green complaining and everybody else. And it's really not the case. The Steelers were a good run defense team for the better part of the schedule.
Yeah.
Then they ran into a couple teams that could really run, and they ran into some teams that could really block. I'm thinking of the way the Eagles did for current now Steeler Kenneth Gainswell once Saquon Barkley was hurt. I just don't see it as some sort of recurring, oh my God, we've got to solve this thing problem because of one game in which they allowed, say it with me, 299 yards.
Yeah, I will say, I think there is serious concern over the rush defense not because of the 299 yards. That was obviously awful. But there were enough performances down the stretch in which they just didn't. What's the best way I can put this? They don't stop the run like the defenses of old, and I hate to kind of put it in that way. But to kind of echo what Ben Roethlisberger said on his podcast, it was just kind of a given that the opposing team was never going to get 100 yards rushing. And I don't get that feeling while watching this defense. It could happen almost any week now. In a time which the ball is being thrown quite a bit. I understand running the football is kind of becoming cool again, but I don't see it as a dominant run defense the way it was for years and years and years.
Here's another one. This is from Brian Jonker. And when I say another one, I mean another one of those kind of narrative-based questions. Is without Najee Harris, will Mike Tomlin go back to a single feature back And what's the over-under for how long Jaylen Warren will survive with that workload? Do we overstate Jalen's durability issues? I mean, he's not hurt that much. You know?
Well, okay.
He came out of camp with a nagging something that kind of slowed him down.
He did, and he was playing games. So, yes, he was there, but he wasn't 100%. And there have definitely been games throughout his 3 years, which he's played, but he's been banged up, and he's been less than 100%. I think to your one of your other points on Jaylen Warren, I think the durability concerns outweigh the fumbling issues.
The fumble concerns, yeah.
I think the
That's
durability
way overblown.
I think the durability concern is there is. I think there's credence to that. I do think there's merit to that, and I think that's the reason why they number one got Kenneth Gainwell before the draft, because based off of what they signed him for, which was less than $2 million. They could have waited until after the draft, so he doesn't even factor into the compensatory pick formula. But they wanted to get another guy that could pass protect on third down, could return kicks, could handle some carries, who just got done backing up Saquon Barkley, and then go into the draft which has just such a deep class of running backs, so that they can build a running back room. So no, it's not going to be a feature back room.
By the way, one of the cool things, you and I were sitting next to each other in the Gainesville press conference.
Yeah.
And he just openly acknowledged that not one of, but maybe the main reason the Steelers signed him was how he did against them. It's amazing to me, Chris, how often that happens in sports, because you're in the stadium or in the arena or at the ballpark or whatever it is, and you just see and feel that effect that opposing athlete has on you, and you're sitting there thinking, I want one of those, like a kid in a toy shop, and you end up going and getting them. But he did have a wonderful game in Philadelphia against the Steelers.
Did you see what Mike Tomlin said about Kenneth Gainwell at
I did
the annual
not.
meeting? Okay, I'm going to pull it up here from our feet, because the entire quote is worth it, because that just what Mike Tomlin said reinforces what you just said by a billion. It really does. I got to find it. So here, maybe answer another question while
I'm going to do that here. Randy Wagner says that the Steelers defense, a dominant defense, is a number one priority. You got to have it. And Randy's right. Okay. I'm not, whenever I say things like that, the defensive line is not a need, it's a want, I'm being literal. Okay. I'm using the term need the way I was using it as applied to the wide receiver room before DK Metcalf. Yeah. And apparently the Steelers agreed with that viewpoint, since they just gave Metcalf $150 million and did a very, very un-Steelers-like thing. Did you find your quote?
I did.
All right. This is now Mike Tomlin on Kenneth Gainwell, or as he said to us, Kenny G. You can just call me Kenny G.
Obviously, the acquisition of Kenny Gainwell is something that we're really excited about. That's a guy that we've competed against. It seems like he made a bunch of significant plays in the flat against us a couple months back that were significant, game-altering like plays. You catch a swing route on 3rd and 6, you make a couple people miss, you get a new set of downs, you're able to keep the drive alive. He converted a 3rd down in a similar way inside the red area, created a 1st down. I could keep going for about another 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's all about the one game. And this is what I mean when there's so much of the Tomlin stuff that's so old-fashioned. He's looking at the scoreboard to see what the replay was. He's seeing and feeling what the guy did to the Steelers in the stadium. Bob Loblaw, who has by the way, the best name on here. If you don't watch Arrested Development, you not get that. So speaking of signing guys that did well against the Steelers, Metcalf had a game against Joey Porter Jr., and here he is. Yeah. Guess who would not agree with that assessment, though? That would be one JPJ, because you know why? When the game came down to it at the end, who won the final matchup? That's right, pal. That's right, pal. Number 24. And after the game in the locker room, this was out in Seattle. I went over to where Joey was, and Joey had already done like multiple waves of interviews. He was going nowhere, Chris. He could have been there after the plane took off. just standing there with his hands on his hips. He did not care in the slightest about all the damage that Metcalf had done to him for 3 quarters and change. All he wanted to talk about was that last play. So people keep coming up to him and asking the same question about the same play. And he's like, yeah, let's talk about that. Wow. It's almost like he didn't fall far from the tree, right?
Yeah, not quite as loud as his dad used to be, but when he makes a good play, he's going to let everybody know.
Okay, yeah, nobody's close to that tree. there's only one of those guys. They shot me in the rear end. He did not say rear end.
He did not. They did.
Chris Parnell has a baseball thing. He says over under on the number of sell the team chants at PNC today. There's a plane flying over us right now that says sell the team, Bob. And then there's the ourteamnothis.com, which is their website of the people who've been conducting the protests in the offseason for Bob Nutting to ditch the franchise. And there's going to be an impact. I also understand that some of the protesters are going to be out on Federal Street, might be out there right now. I'm obviously on this side of the river at the moment. I'm heading over when we're done. That's why, by the way, we're doing the show early today. And they are telling people that whenever they do the Let's Go Bucks chant, when there's recordings, by the way, when you hear the organ at PNC Park, that's still the late Vince Lachey. They recorded his jingles. They had him do a bunch of those before he passed, because they wanted him to always be the sound of Pirates baseball, which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
When you hear the Let's Go Bucks, dun, 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 they're encouraging people to say sell the team instead of Let's Go Bucks. Now, I'm really skeptical that's going to work, Chris, because I've seen a lot of Yankees fans here, including coming into our place. And I'm not pointing to this guy as if he's wearing black and gold, but I'm saying in general, okay? Yeah. And if they take up as much as half of the stadium, well, no, they're not getting into some sell the team chant. Why would they care? They like the system just the way it is. The Pirates are their farm team.
Actually, I think of all the owners that have been talking about salary cap stuff,
it's been Hal.
Yeah. Hasn't Hal Steinbrenner been one of them?
Yeah, because he's the one that's been put the most on the defensive, because the Yankees have lost players that they're not used to losing, and they're losing them because the Dodgers have way more money. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a salary cap in baseball. I've been the only one saying it, Chris. You know that for years now. There's a salary cap coming. There's only so long that they could be the only ones that don't have that. Lord Stinkfoot says, how's Troy Fautanu's health? Is he better? Fautanu did speak at the locker cleanout, and he said he's fine.
Yeah. No, and Omar Khan has echoed that. They plan for him to be regular OTAs. So there should be no concerns over Fautanu and his availability.
I mean, the nature of his injury wasn't such that it was going to be some sort of, debilitating, lingering, chronic thing. He just, when he was going to get better, he was going to get better. And he's still a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about Troy.
No, I wouldn't. And what he suffered wasn't like an ACL or MCL or anything like that. Yeah, it was a dislocated kneecap, which, I mean, that's a significant injury, but it's not quite the same as a torn ACL.
Mike Bone wants to know from you, Chris, who's your pick for a big, strong, run over people and speed type running back? Now, before you answer, it's so funny now how often people will say, like, a Najee type back. Do you hear that a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't just mean in Pittsburgh. I think just because Najee got some of that reputation because I think of the prominence of all the angry runs and everything else that started to catch attention in football. By the way, you know who was second in angry runs in the NFL?
Jaylen Warren.
Jaylen Warren. That's right, pal.
And he's not exactly the biggest guy either.
No.
So in the draft, I'm going to list 3 guys. The first one's Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. He is big and fast. He can do both. Quinshawn Judkins out of Ohio State. He is really fast for a bigger guy, and he can also run you over if he wants to. And then I like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, who the Steelers just hosted for a pre-draft visit yesterday. Big body type. He's like 6'1", like over 220, but reminds me not reminds me as in stature or as good of a power runner as Jerome Bettis, but reminds me of the fact that he's a big guy who's light on his feet, because that's what Jerome used to be. Jerome used to be able to dance like a ballerina through between the tackles and then put a foot in the ground and run somebody over,
which is insane.
I know. Yeah.
In hindsight.
And Caleb Johnson is cut from the same cloth in that regard. Big body type, but he's really light on his feet and can do a lot of really interesting cuts and dances to create space for him in between the tackles or running outside zone.
By the way, friendly advice to any general manager, since the St. Louis Rams were dumb enough to do that with Jerome. If somebody comes to you and offers a first-round pick for your young player, hit the pause button and at least think about it, okay? Because it happened with the Dolphins and Minkah Fitzpatrick too. It's so dumb that it defies logic. Tyrone Wilson just says, from Pittsburgh with love the show, keep up the good work. Thanks, Tyrone. That's really cool, actually. Tommy says that all signs point to the Steelers drafting Jackson Dart. They do?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
I'm hoping you can explain that one, Tommy. He's a perfect scenario, maybe in your own vision or your own version of this, but not in terms of any sort of news or reporting. He says, we don't draft Dart. This is Tomlin's last year. We hire Cliff Kingsbury as head coach. Okay. And draft Arch Manning next season. All right. So Tommy just went like this. He just ramped right off and went nuts on us here. Jonathan says, did Keanu Benton have a good year? That sounds like a good headline on a Chalk Talk. Does it not?
I mean, I'm
game?
Yeah, I'm game. I'm game on that one because
it's an issue.
I do think he had another closer to a repeat of what he did as a rookie. I think there was some growth, and so he was a decent player. He wasn't bad by any stretch. I don't think he was bad by any stretch, but I want to see more. I think there's definitely more there for what he's capable of, for the athleticism that he has with the size that he has. There's untapped potential there, and that it's just not happened in 2 years.
He also might be miscast. I mean, let's call that for what it is. I remember a talk I had with him. This was in Landover, Maryland, after the Steelers beat the Commanders. And I'd seldom heard him, meaning Keanu, sound so satisfied with his performance, with the defense's performance. Of course, they went at Jaden Daniels and they smoked him. Mm-hmm. Okay. First, they smoked him out. And then, meaning out from the pocket, they made sure that he was ineffective, and they really made sure that he wouldn't run. And Keanu was feeling it. And I just think, Chris, that we're talking about someone here who wants to be chasing the quarterback around.
Oh, okay? Yeah,
now,
100%.
And the difference between him and Javon Hargrave, who used to say the same thing and who used to quietly lodge a lot of the same complaints when he was in Pittsburgh, not that Keanu's lodging complaints, but they try still with their nose tackle or their guy to make him into Casey Hampton or some version of Casey Hampton. You don't need to do that, man. If he's good at chasing the quarterback, that's where Javon got paid. Yep.
And Keanu Benton coming out of college, even though he played nose tackle at Wisconsin, he was known more for being a better pass rusher than a run stopper. And so having him be your default nose tackle, it's going to be inconsistent. It just is. Now, the area that I want to see him grow is whenever the Steelers are in their sub-package football and they've got two down interior linemen and he's one of them, he needs to be able to produce there. If he can't do that, he's not going to make it. And he's not going to make it anywhere, not just in Pittsburgh. You have to be able to play as a 3-tech if you're going to play defensive tech or the defensive lineman in today's NFL.
I'll take a couple more today. Lee says, is there any news on who was at the Colorado Pro Day? I would imagine all eyes were on one player at the Colorado Pro Day.
Well, it could have been Shadur Sanders or Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter's
okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
But in terms of the Steelers, I don't know of anybody in particular who was there. Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan were not there for sure. That was not on their tour that they did. So I'm sure they had somebody there, but it was probably a scout of some kind, not anybody of significance.
Okay, Bob's going to get our actually, we're going to take this one here from Mario Wade since he just showed up. Says it's okay to draft a quarterback high and move on quickly if he's not the guy, like what Arizona did with Josh Rosen. That being said, I hope that Shedeur Sanders slides and that we somehow get him or Jackson Dart. Some of this is starting to take on, Chris, a Malik Willis kind of feel. And I'm not comparing Shedeur to Malik. What I am saying is that as you get closer to the draft, more and more people start thinking about quarterbacks, and they just start doing this in the class. And then you know what ends up happening? The draft. And what happens? The draft. And all of a sudden you're going, how many rounds until Malik? Hey, anybody seen Malik?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
that's kind of how that goes.
Now, Shedeur Sanders is going to be a first-round pick. Like, I don't think there's any really debate about that. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is, because now there's been talk that he'll go as high as in the top 5, just because he's a quarterback. But for any if he's there at 21, I'm not ruling it out for the Steelers. Now, I'm not saying that that's where they're going to go. I'm just saying I'm not ruling it out because he has enough traits. I mean, he's the second best quarterback in this class. Like, I don't think that it's really that close. I think everybody else who's below him, when you're talking Tyler Shuck, when you're talking Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or any of those guys, that they are significantly below where Sanders is. And I'm not going to rule it out if he's there at 21. I don't think he will be. I think he'll be gone by then. Jackson Dart is one of those guys who's being talked about and being thrust up into the first round just because he's a quarterback, not because he's a first round talent. He is not a first round graded quarterback. He's just not. He might go in the first round, but that doesn't mean he's a first round grade. Kenny Pickett went in the first round, but that doesn't mean he was a first round graded quarterback.
That is correct, pal. Mike says, DK, are you willing to give a first round pick for running back if Ashton He's yes. Yes.
2 thumbs up from me.
I'll make it 4.
Oh my gosh.
That's not a tough one here. Guess who gets the last word on this Friday? Of course, our friend, the Pef, who says, is there anyone that the Steelers would be interested in trading up for, which would say a lot considering our current draft capital? Who would you trade up for? And don't say Cam Ward. Don't get totally nuts on us here, Chris. Who would you say would be more like a guy that, if you think about the Steelers' recent trades up, they've moved into a range where they got, obviously Broderick Jones was that, a bolder trade up, and far less successful, at least at the moment, was Devin Bush. Who would be a guy that they would trade up for? And would it be, by the way, just before you answer, would it be one of those defensive linemen, meaning that they would just have their eyes on one of them, regardless of how many there are, because they did that with Broad. There were all these offensive tackles. Yes, you can absolutely afford to wait where the Steelers are, and one of them are going to come to you, and they didn't because they wanted Broad.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say the most likely guy possibly would be Kenneth Grant from Michigan. That would be
Kenneth Grant.
I mean, he's a freak. You're
ready to throw yourself in front of a moving train for Kenneth Grant here.
He weighs 335 pounds and he runs a sub 540. He's a ridiculous freak that can play nose tackle. He can play defensive end if he needs to. He can do anything. That's a realistic one, and I don't think they would have to give up a lot of draft capital to move up to go get him. I keep seeing, I saw a couple people say Ashton Genty. If he's there at 16 somehow because 15 teams are stupid, yes, trade up and go get him, please. You're talking about a potential all-pro running back. I don't care if he's a running back.
Star is the term that gets associated with him. And when we talk about, don't ever take a running back in the first round, whatever, and then there's always the parentheses. Right. But there's always the parentheses. Well, unless it's a Saquon type. Now, I'm not saying that G&T is Saquon. Okay, yeah. Saquon is Saquon. But I am saying that if you have someone who can be an impact guy, I'm really tired of hearing about this, how this position is devalued. You know when it's not devalued? When they play the games.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
All right, Chris. So I got to head over to do baseball.
Yeah. Have a good time, man.
No.
No. Why not?
They're not fun anymore, man.
Yeah. Paul Skeens is pitching today.
Well, Mitch is. I mean, I think watching Mitch. I think Mitch Keller. I think watching Mitch Keller pitch is fun. I don't know how much fun Mitch is going to have against that lineup.
True.
But when you can't hit, you can't hit. When you can't defend, you can't defend. When you can't fundamental, which isn't even a verb, then you can't fundamental.
That's probably the just my quick Pirates take. That's probably the most frustrating part about the Pirates right now is that because it's not like that they don't want to be aggressive with certain things. Like, do they still lead the Major League Baseball in stolen bases right now?
By a mile.
They're running like crazy, and I love to see that. But everything else about them fundamentally is just terrible.
It's an absolute train wreck. And this is, today is the Pirates' 144th opener in our city. This isn't an expansion team. Okay. Well, I guess it was at one point in 1882. Okay. But this also is a traditional National League city. And we appreciate in Pittsburgh good fundamental small ball. Jay Bell, master of the number 2 hole, the old school number 2 hole, because he could get the bunt down, to get your leadoff hitter up so that when Bonds and Bonilla came up and whatever, people want to see good, smart baseball. That's what's taught around here. That's what's taught, to the kids. And when you see this crap that they did on this opening Florida trip, it's so deflating. It really is. Okay. I gotta go cover it, for better or worse. All right, Chris. We'll talk. We'll talk Monday, and we'll talk about nothing but quarterbacks. Fair?
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Welcome to the business portion of our show, which we no longer even tease. You notice that? Like, you either know it's coming or you don't. Because if you see a little coffee thing spill and you go, they're done. But I'm looking at we have a count here on how many views we have. They haven't changed at all. So you guys are like getting wise to this. The boss reports that we are at 1,880 members, which again is a big uptick just from yesterday. So we're on a pace here where that 3,000 members goal is looking really good. The goal is to have that many by the start of training camp, which is in late July. So I don't know, that this might require a little bit of a reset, but that would be a welcome development. Let's go through who came aboard here. Carl bought a gift membership for somebody. Then Carl said, you know what? I'm not feeling that one. So Carl comes in and does another. Carrie always does one every day. Rick came in with a $5 contribution to go with his question. Tyrone Wilson wished us all a happy Friday. And Lee came in, with a $5 contribution as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Thanks to people who've been longtime members, like Rick, for being here, for supporting the program. If you have not done this already, all you do is go to dkps.net/join, which you can see. I always have a hard time with this arrow pointing thing. See it over there? Nope, down. Okay. See it over there. DKPS. You'd be surprised how hard that is. dkps.net/join is where to go. Type it in your URL after this is done. It's 99 cents a month. As we get closer to the draft, and again, that's only 20 days away, we are going to be doing members only content. And I don't want anybody getting mad at the time. Hey, you didn't warn us about this or whatever. I can't get in to find out what, Chris is saying or what Matt Williamson is saying, what Ramon Foster is saying. Make sure that you get in now. dkps.net/join is the way to go. Guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate the dialogue that we have, including when we disagree. And I'm hoping that we can continue respecting each other's viewpoints, including as related to the hot button subject of the quarterback. So let's hook up again on Monday.